that pedal down on the floor. Push it to the crowd, can't take no more. Been here since the flag came down. I'll be here to the last lap around. Worked all week, it's time to play. Gonna get a little bit sideways. Here since the flag came down. Be here to the last lap around. Worked all week, it's time to play. Gonna get a little bit sideways.
We're back. It's Tuesday night, and you know what that means, race fans. It's time for another edition of Motorsports Madness here on Speed77 Radio and RaceChaserOnline.com. It's November 12th, and we got a lot to talk about tonight, stemming from NASCAR, F1, IndyCar, the sprint car world, and much, much more. If you want your motorsports news, the number one source for all things in the world of motorsports is Motorsports Madness, and the ride starts right now. Good evening, everyone, and welcome to Speed77 Radio and Race Chaser Online. I'm Jacob Seelman, the voice of Speed77 Radio, here at the roundtable for another edition of Motorsports Madness tonight, alongside my two broadcast colleagues, Tom Baker and James Pike. Gentlemen, it's been a long weekend, a lot of racing action. We've got an extended edition, once again, an hour and a half to take it all in tonight, and everything gets ready to kick off right now. Tom, certainly a big weekend across all forms of motorsports.
Yeah, it really was. And, you know, usually on Monday, you talk a lot about race recaps and debate upcoming races, and unfortunately, the first couple days of this week have been riddled with some news of the variety that we usually don't like to share. So we have some rather sad news to pass along as we go along through the show as well. But it has certainly been a full weekend on the racing front all the way around.
Yes, it has, and James, welcome you back to the table as well. Certainly a lot of things going on. Anything specific that caught your eye over the past weekend?
You know, to be honest, not overly, just because there was so much. It was a little bit difficult. My eyeballs peeled in all the different directions between the World Finals and HRA, of course, NASCAR at Phoenix. I just feel like we're going to hit, the next 2 weeks, and then all of a sudden, all of this will be gone, and I'll start missing the racing. I'll start having withdrawal symptoms, and it might not be so much fun over here in my corner of the world.
Well, it's not fun in anybody's corner of the world here. If you're talking the Carolinas right now, I'm looking out my window and it's snowing. So that's definitely a sign the racing's about done for the year.
Yeah, I think it's a little bit too early for snow to really arrive in the Carolinas in the middle of November when it's not the mountains. I was just as surprised as you were.
Certainly.
It's a few flakes to an acre. Y'all need to chill. It's going to be in the 60s by the end of the weekend.
It better be, because we've got Homestead and championship battles to worry about. But before we can get to that, let's go ahead and get to the previous weekend in motorsports and start off with the NASCAR Camping World Truck Series from over the weekend. And boy, did we have a show in the Truck Series. Really spearheaded by two young guns in the series, Ross Chastain and 17-year-old Eric Jones. Chastain driving for Brad Keselowski, Jones driving for Kyle Busch, and boy, the two of them staged a whale of a duel, leading all but 3 laps on the night. Eric Jones ultimately coming out victorious, making the final pass for the win inside of 10 laps to go. Jones goes on to victory lane at Phoenix, and the Valley of the Sun becomes the youngest ever Camping World Truck Series winner, and really helps Kyle Busch go into Homestead with keeping the battle for the Owners' Championship alive for that 51 team, Tom. You can't underscore how important this was, not just for that team, but for Eric Jones as well. Certainly a record-setting accomplishment.
Yeah, it really was, and it was a great race between those two young drivers. And you got to give them both a ton of credit, because that is not the easiest track to drive, and both of them drove it like they have driven on it for years. And I got to give a lot of props to Ross Chastain, because I think Ross is a young driver that has had several good runs in the Truck Series over the last couple of years, and is kind of an unsung hero. I don't think he really gets the credit he deserves, and I'm glad to see him getting the the opportunity with BKR, and I hope that this leads to something for him full-time next year. And ditto for Eric Jones, because Kyle Busch Motorsports is in a little bit of financial peril at this point. We know that they intend to bring Bubba Wallace back, Darrell Wallace Jr., for a full season with the 54 truck, and Kyle is hoping to be able to bring himself back with the 51 truck for about 12 races or so, and then let Eric Jones run the rest of them, but at least for the tracks that he's approved for. But they're still working out some sponsorship issues, and kind of hard to believe, honestly, that this team is having so much trouble with funding, given who owns it and given the situation. But just goes to show that it's a very delicate landscape still at the top of the motorsports ladder for marketing these days.
It really does, and I know Eric Jones possibly going to be back in that 51 truck, as you said, with Kyle Busch for the balance of the races that Busch doesn't run next year. It'll be good to see him back, because that young man has made a lot of progress in that truck over the races that he has run this year, and I don't think anybody was shocked to see him run as well as he did. Maybe making the pass for the win was a little bit unexpected, but you talk about KBM having troubles. We have to make mention, too, that Ross Chastain's not in a safe position either. Chastain doesn't have anything shored up with BKR for 2014, and he said he is actively looking to try and make something happen to stay in the Truck Series next year as well.
Yeah, that's what I was saying. I think, I'm hoping that this drive winds up landing both of them, the visibility and, I guess, the support. Companies to believe in them enough to get behind them. They're both well-spoken. They're both really talented young racers, and I would think that both of them would do very well as sponsor representatives, so to speak. So hopefully this will lead to good things for both of them, but it was sure good to see a couple of young guys racing it out in a series that I think all too often gets more known for the Ron Hornadays of the bunch and Kyle Busch than it does for a lot of the young talent that actually exists in it.
I think it just speaks to just how hard it is to really make it to the top level. I kind of like to think of drivers a little bit as musicians, in that there are so many great drivers out there at the local short tracks all across the country that if they had the opportunity to get a ride in one of the national touring series, that they would do a fine job in it. But it's just those opportunities are so far and few between that you see a lot more guys left on the outside looking in than you do see guys like Eric Jones and Ross Chastain actually get those chances. And I think I can speak for all of us when I say I hope that something sometime soon comes along to change all of that.
Very true. Now, with the Truck Series battle being shored up, we can't overlook that Matt Crafton now has a 46-point lead going into the finale at Homestead over Ty Dillon. All he has to do is start the race, and Crafton scores the championship for ThorSport and for that 88 Ansel Menard's team. Going to be a long-awaited celebration for Matt Crafton. Very well-deserved there. But as shored up as the battle in the Truck Series is, the Nationwide Series is anything but. The Victory Lane celebration on Saturday afternoon, exactly what we expected. Kyle Busch starts from the pole, goes to Victory Lane for the 12th time this season, 10th pole of the year for Kyle Busch. But that right there, coupled with a 19th place finish for Brad Keselowski in the 22 machine, not to mention Austin Dillon and Sam Hornish only being separated by 8 points going into the finale, it's going to be a barn burner, Tom, for these nationwide titles.
Yeah, that's really true. I think Austin, it's going to be fun to watch the battle between Austin and Sam at Homestead, because you know that they're both going to be pretty much going for broke, especially at the end of the race. And, of course, the owner's title is not something I think that most fans really care about, but it certainly is important to the teams. And so from that standpoint, it leads to some great racing by the drivers who are obviously on those teams. And so the interesting thing is that BK is entered in the 48 car this coming weekend, which I found to be kind of curious. and so we'll have to see how all that works out. But it should be a lot of fun. I'm going to enjoy watching the drivers battle more so than the owners battle. You expect the 22 and the 54 to be up front. I really am going to be looking for what the 3 and the 12 are up to, because that's going to be a lot of fun to watch.
It really will be, and there's no two drivers that are more driven as far as this title fight than are Austin Dillon and Sam Hornish. Both of them have different reasons for wanting this championship. Austin Dillon, with his impending move to the Cup Series, wants to have a shot to win the Truck Series title and the Nationwide Series title before he makes the jump to the top level. Sam Hornish, of course, wants this title just to survive and stay relevant, hopefully come back for another season next year.
Well, yeah, that's what I was going to say. This is an audition for Sam, as if he needs it. But so he's really probably got a little more to play for in terms of, as you put it perfectly, his survival in the series, and if not with Penske, then certainly with someone else. But I think it's going to be off with the 3 car. Austin runs well at Homestead, and I think Austin's got the edge here going in.
So you've got your Truck Series title fight, your Nationwide Series title fights, which will go down to the wire. And then there's the Cup Series, and welcome 5-time Jimmie Johnson to what we all think is going to be the championship stage. Johnson capitalizing on a great day in the Valley of the Sun, as he's known for, the winningest driver in track history, having another top 5 afternoon on a day when Matt Kenseth could not seem to do anything right. That car floundered all afternoon. The points gap now 28 points going to the finale. That just means 24th place finish or better, and or rather 23rd place finish or better, because Matt Kenseth does have the tiebreaker. And Jimmie Johnson gets the 6-pack of championships. But, while that was going on, Kevin Harvick got a win too, Tom.
Yeah, so I wonder which one actually had the golden horseshoe at Phoenix, Harvick or Jimmie Johnson. Maybe they split it. Yeah, look, I mean, I don't think anybody's shocked that JJ's the points lead. I think everybody's disappointed that the wheels fell off the Kenseth title challenge so horribly the other day. It was just a meltdown all the way around, in one of those disastrous days where you would have been probably better off staying in bed. I hate that for Matt and the team. They've had such a great season, but you know what? That's part of it, and you got to be strong when it counts, and this was just a really bad time to have the mistakes and have things happen that happen. But Jimmie Johnson now goes in with a pretty safe advantage. All he's really got to do is start and finish in one piece, and he's going to end up winning the championship. And hats off to the 48 team again. I mean, they went into what really is probably has been the closest in terms of most competitive chase field ever in the history of the chase. And when it all comes down to the last race, there's that car sitting up top again, and it just goes to show the consistency and the cool-headedness that prevails in the organization, in that they don't let 1 or 2 bad races bother them.
I want to turn to James before we head to our first caution flag of the evening, because while Jimmie Johnson was being level-headed, you and I were definitely watching the battle at the front of the field, and the heartbreak for Carl Edwards. They thought they had it figured, and he runs out coming to the white flag, and the comment I made to you earlier in the day today, they don't call him the closer for nothing.
I was kind of beginning to wonder whether or not this was a case of Jimmie Johnson and Kevin Harvick having the golden horseshoe, or if it was more Matt Kenseth and Carl Edwards having black cats following them, or having walked under ladders unknowingly to the rest of us sometime before the race, because it just seems like Carl can't catch a break when he needs one desperately. You look back through his career, and it just seems like he's got so many stories of coming so close and yet falling right at the last minute, and this just kind of seems to file right into that whole line of things. Kenseth kind of the same. I know Tom touched on it a lot, but just a shame to see them have everything fall apart after what has been one of the most spectacular years, I think, in recent memory. I think you'd have to go back to Kyle Busch's 2008 really to find something comparable in terms of a driver landing with a new team and just starting with a bang. But all that said, all credit to Kevin Harvick, who I definitely want to send my congratulations to. I think it's a nice way for him to close out his time with RCR. I think a lot of us wanted to see him get to victory lane one more time before he parted ways, and I think he's got that in the book now. So hopefully, especially after the comments he made at Martinsville, they'll be able to end on peaceful terms.
Certainly that, and we'll have more from around the NASCAR garage area. We've got your recaps handled, and we'll hit the news wire for the stories of the day when we come back. But our first caution flag of the night, you're listening to Motorsports Madness on Speed77 Radio and RaceChaserOnline.com. We'll be back right after this.
For 17 years, Stock Car Steel has been a leading materials supplier to the racing industry. We're proud they're a motorsports content partner here at Race Chaser Online. The biggest names in NASCAR trust Stock Car Steel for raw materials such as carbon steel, chrome moly, DOM, aluminum, plastics, and much more. You can't build a race car without the basic materials, and Stock Car Steel is the place to get them. Don't forget to also visit Stock Car Steel's sister company, SRI Supplies, for racing and industry. SRI is the place to go for all your shop supply needs. Nuts, bolts, rivets, tapes, adhesives, cutting tools, chemicals, body shop supplies, paint shop supplies, lubricants, and more. A well-stocked race shop is a winning race shop, and the path to winning begins with 3 letters, SRI. For more information, visit StockCarSteel.com or SRI-Supplies.com. Check them both out on Facebook or call them toll-free at 1-888-752-7272, 1-888-752-7272.
I'm Jacob Seelman.
And I'm Tom Baker.
You're listening to Speed77 Radio,
Powered by Race Chaser Online.
We are your home for motorsports. Welcome back to Motorsports Madness here on Speed77 Radio, powered by Race Chaser Online. Jacob Seelman, Tom Baker, and James Pike, the Camel City Kid, sitting down here at the round table to discuss all the news of the week from around the world of motorsports and catch you up on the past weekend. News of the day from the NASCAR garage, certainly, Tom, and you alluded to it in our opening here, not what we like to hear starting out on a Monday afternoon, and really a 1-2 blow for Roush Fenway Racing. On Monday afternoon announced that Travis Pastrana would not be returning to the NASCAR ranks in 2014. Pastrana making that announcement via his Facebook page. And then earlier this morning, Trevor Bayne diagnosed with multiple sclerosis, though he will return for the Wood Brothers to compete in the finale this weekend at Homestead for the Cup Series, as well as in the NASCAR Nationwide Series, but certainly not the type of news you want to start your week with.
No, definitely not. The Travis Pastrana thing is, it's probably a big deal to some people. It's not that big of a deal to me because I just never thought that Travis was making a whole lot of progress in the oval cars in NASCAR. I think, when you have situations like this where someone comes from a whole other realm into NASCAR. I mean, back in the 70s, we had, Marty Robbins, who was a country and western singer, used to race NASCAR all the time. But, in that era, it was kind of more of a hobby for some people. Travis was trying to be serious about it, but I just didn't really see him making a lot of progress. He didn't, just never really caught on that well, and I'm not surprised that he wasn't able to find funding. So that really didn't shock me very much, but certainly the news about Trevor Bayne, I said it was sad news earlier, and I want to be careful not to over-dramatize it, but certainly right now Trevor doesn't show any symptoms from what he has said, and he feels as healthy as he ever has. He's looking forward to the finale this weekend with the Wood Brothers, and of course will run for the whatever that nationwide series is called next year title with Roush Fenway. So certainly praying for Trevor and wishing him nothing but the best. He is one of the classiest young Christian men you'd ever want to meet, and has absolutely no qualms about sharing his faith and putting his faith out there, and just a terrific role model for a lot of young Christians. And he's a great racer too, and so we certainly wish him best, and wish Travis the best in whatever he chooses to do next. And hate it didn't work out for him, but just one of those situations where sometimes two things that seem alike really aren't.
I think with Travis's departure that we can unofficially close the book on the whole wave of folks that came to NASCAR from other disciplines of motorsport. Remember back in about 2007, we had the IndyCar mass invasion with Dario Franchitti, Jacques Villeneuve, folks of that type. And now that Travis is gone, I think it just speaks to just how specialized NASCAR really is these days. It's very, very hard to come in from something else and be able to make it work and be successful, as those guys have proven, probably more so than it was back in the early days of the sport. So hate to see Travis go. Always one of the nicest guys in the garage, great personality. And I have a feeling that wherever he heads next, he'll be successful, likely some form of dirt discipline. That's probably where he's best, if we're being honest. He's definitely got a talent for the brown and the red stuff.
I would totally agree with you on how cool a guy he was and what a personality he has. Disagree on the discipline part of it. If you look at the Indy guys that came over, Dario Franchitti basically only had about a year, got seriously injured at one point, and I'm not so that I'm ready to say that Dario had the very best of an opportunity there at Chip Ganassi. The equipment at that time I don't think was among the best, but I think it takes a little more than a year to adapt. So I think you can come from other disciplines and race NASCAR. I mean, a lot of the open wheel guys have proven that. Tony Stewart did it. Ryan Newman's doing just fine. Casey Kane's doing just fine. But Travis was coming from a completely different sport, a completely different type of situation than than what those guys were. Four wheels in the motor is not two wheels in a motor, and Travis just I think he needed to spend some time in the lower ranks first and do some short track racing. He never really did that enough, I don't think. Just tried to go straight to NASCAR, and it is a lot harder than it looks, for sure, but I don't think you can correlate some of the IndyCar guys' experiences with Travis's. But again, we certainly wish Travis the best, and wherever he goes, he's going to add humor and really add class. It just didn't work out for him.
No, it didn't. But talking about things that may or may not work out for 2014, interesting rumor came across the wire today. Moving away from Roush Fenway Racing, but now over to Stewart-Haas Racing. The rumor came across the wire today that Steve Addington will be leaving the number 14 Stewart-Haas team that Tony Stewart will return to for Daytona 2014 and move over to the number 51 Chevrolet that's now owned by Harry Scott and be the crew chief on top of the box for Justin Allgaier's Rookie of the Year campaign in 2014. Very, very interesting combination there in my mind. I'm surprised that we're hearing this because Steve Addington and the 14 team, I can't say Tony Stewart so much because he's been out a lot of this season, but Addington over at Stewart-Haas has had a lot of success, so this kind of surprises me.
Yeah, it surprises me a bit too, but of course we don't know the whole story on what's behind any of this, what other discussions have been had, that kind of thing. So I would say that probably there had been some conversation about maybe Steve going elsewhere, and the 51 became a good opportunity. It'll put him in a position to work with Justin Allgaier and be in a single car type of setup, but with the support of a pretty wide organization around it. And of course, the other part of that rumor, which is sort of separate but not really, is the rumor that Kevin Mannion, or Bono, as most people know him, leaving Chip Ganassi to go work at Turner Scott Motorsports. Again, a bit of a surprise there, but Turner Scott needs to hire some people if they're going to run some more trucks and things next year. So, interesting rumor mill. We talk about driver silly season, but this is where it gets to be crew chief and crew member silly season, where everybody kind of packs their suitcase and we shuffle the deck and just give them all new uniforms for next year, different teams.
That we do, and with that, we will close the book on the first half hour of our program here tonight. We'll be back with more Motorsports Madness right at the bottom of the hour, but for now, we're going to take another caution flag. When we come back, we move to Open Wheel Central. We'll sit down with Joel Sebastianelli and talk Formula One and IndyCar. That's coming up next here on Speed77 Radio and Race Chaser Online. We are your home for motorsports.
Packers,
Vikings,
Red State,
Blue State.
We come from different places.
Uptown,
Downtown.
We come to different conclusions.
half empty,
Half full.
But no matter how different we are, we're all connected, and we can all make a difference. That's why United Way brings people, expertise, and resources together to improve the education, income, and health of our communities, the building blocks for a better life. When we live united, our efforts, magnified by others, add up to real change. Children succeed in school, families gain financial stability, the health of our neighbors improves, and suddenly, so do our communities. But real change won't happen without you.
Live united.
So let's look beyond our differences.
Live united.
One by one, let's make a difference. Let's reach out a hand to one and influence the condition of all.
Live united.
Give, advocate, volunteer. Live United. Sign up today at liveunited.org. Brought to you by United Way and the Ad Council.
Hi, this is Jamie McMurray here for RAD, the entertainment industry's voice for road safety. Want to make a difference? It's simple. Be responsible. Plan ahead. Designate before you celebrate. Friends don't let friends drive drunk.
Baby, you can drive my car. Yes, I'm gonna be a
A public service message brought to you by the U.S. Department of Transportation, RAD, the National Association of Broadcasters, and the Ad Council.
I'm Jacob Seelman.
And I'm Tom Baker,
You're listening to Speed77 Radio.
powered by Race Chaser Online.
We are your home for motorsports.
Welcome back to Motorsports Madness here on Speed77 Radio and Race Chaser Online. Jacob Seelman sitting down as we move into the second half hour of our 90-minute show here tonight. And now sitting down at the round table for another round of Open Wheel Central, we bring our resident wine and cheeser, Joel Sebastianelli, back to the table here with us this evening. Joel, this is going to be an interesting conversation, as a matter of fact. You're here at the round table with us, already on a round of Red Bull. Certainly, that's just one of many things that may come up in our weekly jaunts through the open wheel world, but a lot to talk about tonight.
Yeah, there certainly is such a busy week in Formula One. You've got the United States Grand Prix coming up, but most of the focus, especially with the 2013 championship already wrapped up for Sebastian Vettel, his fourth in a row, most of the focus is now on 2014 because there's been so many driver changes. The market has really been shaken up over the past couple of days.
It really has, and let's get right to some of the driver changes, and probably the most high-profile change that we're going to see, not for 2014, but for the last two races of this season. Kimi Räikkönen over at Lotus going to miss the remainder of the season, going to have back surgery done to make sure he's prepared for his move to Ferrari in 2014. Obviously, there have been the problems between Räikkönen and Lotus this season with pay issues, but how big of a hit is this for Lotus going into the final two races? It's going to make it tough for them to keep pace with Ferrari, I would think.
Yes, but I would also consider that going forward, maybe, just maybe, there's a bit of a silver lining shining in here. For Kimi Räikkönen to be done at Lotus, it's disappointing. His retirement on the first lap at Abu Dhabi will be his final race with the team, seeing as that he's moving to Ferrari in 2014. But Lotus does not have a driver lined up for 2014. Now, the race has mainly been between Pastor Maldonado and Nico Hülkenberg, but with David Valsecchi believed to be taking the seat, given that he is the reserve driver for the final two races in 2013. If Valsecchi does quite well in those final two races, he may be considered a favorite for the seat. Well, they stick with him, seeing as he's actually been around the team, whereas these other two drivers are not. And Pastor Maldonado, despite bringing a lot of money, has really struggled in this time for Formula One, aside from one victory.
Oh, the stories just keep rolling around that Lotus camp. It seems like every time they try to get out of the news, something just comes back to bite them again. Driver changes abound, though, continuing around. Felipe Massa finally announcing that he will be in at Williams for the 2014 season, and the before-mentioned Pastor Maldonado, who we've talked about, possibly moving to Lotus, is out of that seat. You'd think a downsize for Felipe Massa, but it may actually be a silver lining here for the driver who's always been number 2 at Ferrari, a chance to finally become the number 1 driver for a team that maybe he can lift to something a little bit bigger than they've been before now.
Perhaps, but I think that's asking for a lot. Williams has only scored 1 point this season. It was a 10th place finish coming in Hungary. They've been quite poor otherwise. Not even a lot of retirements, just finishing outside the points, outside of the top 10. Remember, in Formula 1, the points go from 25 to 1, from 1st to 10th, no points awarded for any other position. So, I don't know what Felipe Massa can do. I guess it's good for him to be in a car, but his form at Ferrari wasn't particularly outstanding anyways after he came back from the scary incident a few years ago. I just don't really see him elevating the team all that much. Would I rather have him than Pastor Maldonado? Yes, I would. But alongside Valtteri Bottas, you could put Sebastian Vettel in one of the Williams machines, and he's not going to be up there fighting for points every single race. It's really a clunker, quite honestly. One of the cars at the back of the field that people beat up on Marussia and they beat up on Caterham, but Williams hasn't exactly been more than just maybe one step above.
Which is a shame, because you'd want to see a driver like Felipe Massa, even though he struggled at Ferrari this season, you'd like to see him in a competitive car because he's had the success in the past. So definitely not a lateral move. You know, it's going to be really interesting to see how he handles the change going to 2014.
It will be interesting to see how he handles the change. If nothing else, I think it'll be good for Valtteri Bottas to race alongside a veteran of Formula One who has had plenty of success in the past. And don't forget, Felipe Massa, for just about 10 seconds, was the Formula One world champion over Lewis Hamilton. It wasn't until Timo Glock slowed coming out of one of the final corners in Interlagos that Lewis Hamilton snatched the title away, breaking the hearts of Ferrari. And the image of Felipe Massa's father when he realized that his son had gone from winning the World Drivers' Championship to finishing second in just a matter of seconds is really heartbreaking. It's one of those moments in sports that's just absolutely surreal that will stick with me forever. So he's definitely had more success than I think he gets credit for, and having been around the block and having been around the paddock for so long, I think he will add something to Williams. It's just that Williams is struggling much more in the technical aspect and the aerodynamic aspect than they are in the actual driver aspect behind the wheel.
Moving now to probably one of the more interesting driver changes, in my opinion, for 2014, but one that maybe not was completely unexpected. With McLaren, Jenson Button going to have a new teammate in 2014. Sergio Perez, after spending just one season with the McLaren team, going to be out of that ride, and life going to be really, really, really interesting in that McLaren camp for 2014.
It really is a move that, if you had asked me 2 weeks ago, I never would have seen coming. Sergio Perez has been a little bit off the pace of Jenson Button, and well, actually by a little bit I mean a lot. He's been 25 points off of Jenson Button's pace. He's been very inconsistent, and it really hasn't been a great year for Perez after jumping ship from Sauber and being the number one free agent that was on the market at the end of the 2012 season. Jenson Button and Sergio Perez are separated by Paul di Resta and Nico Hülkenberg, in addition to those points, and that's not something that McLaren is very happy about, having a driver in 12. Now, I think it's a little bit unfair to hold all the blame on Sergio Perez because the McLaren has been rather undrivable at times this season, too. They have a lot of work to do, especially heading into 2014 when we move to the V6 turbos, away from the engines they currently use now. So, for Perez to move, I think it opens up a great deal of interest in the driver market from other teams. We already know that Williams doesn't need another driver, but could Sergio Perez perhaps go to Lotus? Does that throw just another driver in the mix for them? Could he go back to Sauber, considering that Sauber hasn't signed anybody up alongside Sergei Sorokin, and Nico Hülkenberg is believed to be moving either to Force India or to Lotus? He's another one of the top drivers out there that people want to sign. So there are so many places that Sergio Perez could go. I still think that, and although I understand the sponsorship issue, I still think that letting go of Fumio Kobayashi and taking Sergio Perez instead was a mistake. I'm still the belief that Fumio Kobayashi, if he could have toned down his aggression just a little bit, should have been an outstanding driver, maybe even a future world champion. I'm not saying that Sergio Perez couldn't reach that level, but I've seen a lot more talent in Fumio Kobayashi, just comparatively, than I've seen in Sergio Perez, and it's too bad that Kobayashi's time in Formula One is essentially over, having missed this season and not believed to be getting a seat anywhere in 2014 because he just doesn't have the money for it. Second in at McLaren would be Kevin Magnussen. He was the Formula Renault champion this season. Actually, another one of McLaren's development drivers in that series. Just 21 years old, very young guy, a lot of talent. The son of a former Formula One driver for Jackie Stewart, Jan Magnussen. I think that Kevin will be good, but when you have drivers on such a short leash, I just think it's a lot like having a head coach in football. You've got to have them around for a couple of years so they can really get used to their style, get used to working with them, and let them acclimate to the car a little bit. It's much easier said than done when you're not winning, because McLaren certainly isn't. But I think that Sergio Perez really got a raw end of the deal here.
I was thinking the same thing. Certainly a shame for the young man who now is going to be kind of in flux until some of these other seats fall into place as to where he's going to go. So that's going to be one of the pieces to the silly season puzzle that we're just going to have to wait and see how that lines up. Certainly looking like it's going to be a very different landscape in Formula One for 2014. A lot to watch, but right now as we roll into the Circuit of the Americas this weekend in Austin for the first of the final two races of the season, the return trip to Austin going to be very, very interesting, I think. The constant here still is Sebastian Vettel now going for 8 wins in a row.
It would be incredible if he could pull it off. He's won so many races. Actually, I think it could be 9 of the last 10 races, because the last race that he did not win was in Hungary. Won the week before in Germany, retired in Great Britain, but won the week before in Canada. He's just winning everything. He has a stranglehold on the series. Not all unlike his fellow countryman Michael Schumacher did in the early 2000s. Vettel qualified for the pole last year at the Circuit of the Americas in Austin, but was surpassed by Lewis Hamilton early on in the race, and Hamilton went on to win. I don't see Mercedes having the power to do that this year, and when this happened last year, it was, of course, with McLaren. Mercedes didn't have all that great a race. Michael Schumacher finished in 15th position after qualifying 5th, and Nico Rosberg, who qualified way down the field, finished outside the top 10 and 13th, neither driver scoring points. I think that Sebastian Vettel has to be the favorite heading into this week once again.
When is Sebastian Vettel not the favorite is the real question. Joel's sitting here hyped up on Red Bull, and that's all we can think about.
Well, you know what? No energy drink I've ever had is compared, and Red Bull is clearly the top of the line on the track and off, in my opinion. Although I certainly don't want to see it as a conflict of interest. For Sebastian Vettel, he has been so outstanding, and many people criticize Vettel. I don't know what more they want. Do you want to stick them in a Lotus and have them win a world championship? Because I have news for you. I heard in Senna, if he raced in this Williams in 2013, he would not have done it. If you set Fernando Alonso in it, wouldn't do it. I'm not trying to knock on Williams, but the criticism that people have for Sebastian Vettel is just so unfounded. I don't know what more they really want. It's quite unreasonable, and as much as I would love to see a little bit more parity and see somebody step up and challenge Vettel, what we're seeing in Formula One is something that doesn't happen all that often. We're seeing perhaps the greatest aerodynamicist to ever live working with one of the greatest drivers that's ever stepped foot in a Formula One car, and the combination has produced something that is unstoppable.
Almost as unstoppable as Jimmy Johnson, Chad Knaus in the Sprint Cup Series, but that's a conversation for another day. Obviously, Formula One not the only story on the market here this week. The IZOD IndyCar Series in the news as well, or rather just the IndyCar Series now, as IZOD sponsorship actually concluding after the last race at Fontana. Joel, IndyCar looking to bring a change to qualifying for the 500, and I know you were extremely outspoken on this the other day when it came across the news wire. Possible changes to the format for 2014, and while IndyCar looking to spice things up, the old saying comes back to my mind, if it ain't broke, why fix it?
Exactly, but that's certainly something that at least since the 90s IndyCar has failed to adhere by. But what they want to do is typically you qualify for the pole before bump day. It's Saturday. You qualify all of the positions up with the exception of, those that go for bump day. And bump day many years ago used to be great drama. In the last few years, it hasn't been because there simply haven't been enough cars to make it exciting. So in IndyCar's defense, perhaps by qualifying positions 25 through 33, the whole bump day thing, by doing that before qualifying for the pole and still throwing positions 1 through 24, just moving pole day to the very end of Sunday, maybe that's the way of trying to create more drama. It's not a ratings thing. I don't see more people tuning into Indianapolis 500 qualifying for it, just to see who's getting at the pole, because they haven't done that in the past. And in fact, there's a big badminton or Tiddly Links tournament that NBC Sports Network has the right to. We may end up missing pole day qualifying and needing to watch it online without any TV presentation values or announcers whatsoever, like we did last year, and terrible coverage on IndyCar.com. And I don't blame NBC Sports Network for that necessarily, but that's just the way it works for IndyCar. The ratings aren't nearly high enough, and this isn't going to pull people in. So, in their defense, I see maybe why they want to do it, but it's as though Mark Miles and Coleman and company with IndyCar just have a long list of ways, a checklist, if you will, for ways to mess up IndyCar, and they're going through and checking them off one by one. And I would love to be watching IndyCar for several years down the road. I'd love to just keep on covering it for my entire life. But I'm scared that it's going to be messed up beyond control with these people in power because it's such a slippery slope and they're falling. Organizationally speaking, IndyCar is a complete mess. They're lucky that the on-track product is as great as it has ever been. There's more parity in IndyCar than during the days of Billy Andretti at any time in the history of the sport. There's more parity. Are the drivers necessarily as great on the world stage? Perhaps not, but it's still a great international competition, and there's so much to love about IndyCar. If it's not broken, which there are plenty of things that are broken in IndyCar, but if it's not actually broken, don't fix it. Go ahead and fix the things that are broken. The schedule, not having nearly enough ovals, and I'm a big fan of road racing, but move away from some of the double headers. It's a fun concept, but they're using it as a cost-cutting move. Go back to Phoenix. The guys at Phoenix Raceway said that they would be more than happy to have IndyCar back, but the ball's in their court, and the fees for hosting the race are just way too high. If IndyCar wants to go back to Phoenix said they would be open to it and would love to have IndyCar come back. Get some of those old tracks on the schedule. Don't begin the season at the very end of March and then end it by Labor Day. Take advantage of the fact that, maybe that schedule and having such a long layoff, about half the year. So maybe it's not that great. We've been capitalized on winter not having all that much competition as far as racing goes, and do some races in the Florida area in January, February, March, all leading up to whatever the first race of the season would be. Those things are broken and need to be fixed. This is not something that's broken. It works. It's created drama throughout the years. Please don't try to fix it, because all they're going to do is break something that isn't broken.
And of course, to break anything that has to do with the Indy 500 in Joel's mind is a complete travesty and completely wrong.
yeah, it's fair to say that. I'm all for change. I actually like the new road racing, bringing back a little more meaning to the phrase the month of May at the Indianapolis Motor Speedway. I'm in the minority who thinks, you know what, no matter where you put IndyCar, they put on an exciting race anyway. So I'm sure it'll be fun. It's a little more revenue for the Speedway, and it's a fun way to kick things off at the beginning of the month. I'm a bit of a traditionalist, but I actually support that. I'm not one of those people who will gripe anytime IndyCar tries to change things and deviate from the norm. Some things, like the doubleheader, which is a complete deviation from anything they've ever done, I think those have turned out great. I really like them, and it's great for fans that are actually there for that weekend to see races like that. So much action, and they've turned out to be some of the best races of the season. So I support that. I just don't support trying to fix things that aren't broken.
And it'll just be a wait-and-see deal at this point as to what IndyCar will do. But I know whether there's a complaint or whether there's a smile coming from you as far as the open-wheel world, you'll be bringing it to us. Joel Sebastianelli, as always, we appreciate you taking some time to sit down at the round table and chat with us. And we look forward to hearing from you again next Tuesday after the Grand Prix of the Americas down in Austin.
As always, thank you.
And with that, we conclude the rant from Joel here this evening. Certainly, Joel Sebastianelli, if you want somebody outspoken on the open wheel world, there's nobody who will give an opinion quicker than Joel will. We're going to head to commercial, take another caution flag, but when we come back, we're going to have Rising Legends car racer Zach Leonardi live in studio with us. That's coming up right after this. You're listening to Motorsports Madness here on Speed77 Radio and Race Chaser Online. We are your home for motorsports.
For 17 years, Stock Car Steel has been a leading materials supplier to the racing industry. We're proud they're a motorsports content partner here at Race Chaser Online. The biggest names in NASCAR trust Stock Car Steel for raw materials such as carbon steel, chrome moly, DOM, aluminum, plastics, and much more. You can't build a race car without the basic materials, and Stock Car Steel is the place to get them. Don't forget to also visit Stock Car Steel's sister company, SRI Supplies, for racing and industry. SRI is the place to go for all your shop supply needs. Nuts, bolts, rivets, tapes, adhesives, cutting tools, chemicals, body shop supplies, paint shop supplies, lubricants, and more. A well-stocked race shop is a winning race shop, and the path to winning begins with 3 letters, SRI. For more information, visit stockcarsteel.com or SRI-supplies.com. Check them both out on Facebook or call them toll-free at 1-888-752-7272, 1-888-752-7272.
I'm Jacob Seelman.
And I'm Tom Baker.
You're listening to Speed77 Radio,
powered by Race Chaser Online.
We are your home for motorsports. Welcome back to Motorsports Madness here on Speed77 Radio and RaceChaserOnline.com. Jacob Seelman, James Pike, and Tom Baker sitting down at the round table this evening. And now we move to our next segment with a special live guest here this evening, Zach Leonardi, rising star in the Legends car world, joining us here at the round table. Zach, first off, good evening to you and welcome to the show tonight.
You too, man. Thank you. Been having a good time. How you guys been doing?
Doing well there, Zach. Definitely glad that you're with us, and hopefully you've got your headset plugged in there, and we'll be able to hear you a little better. But tell us a little bit, first of all, I want to talk about the race that you ran. And first, let's give a little background. Zach is about 12 and a half years old and is just making the transition from Bandoleros to Legends cars. Very successful career in the karts and in the bandos, and now making his transitions to Legends. And of course, he is out of the Georgia area. I was first introduced to Zach when I went to Concord about a month ago to cover one of the Fall Series races there, and my goodness, Zach, you put on a whale of a show there, along with a couple of other racers, Dawson Cram and Zachary Dabbs. Talk a little bit about that race first.
Well, yeah, we came down there for the weekend. That was the last race of the year, I believe. Triple header that weekend, and we came down there. We won the first night, which is real great, and the second day we were, that was, I believe, when that race was, and the car was feeling great. I think we got the pole by about just a few thousandths of a second over Zachary Dabbs. He's a great competitor, you know. We were in that race, and it was bumper to bumper the whole entire race. Me, Dabbs, and Dawson Cram, another great competitor, and it was just an amazing race. We were bumper to bumper, a bunch of there were a couple cautions that reset us and got it even closer. And near the end, it was getting cool, and we ended up getting 3 wide a couple times. And at the end, it came down to the wire. We all got 3 wide, and it was, I didn't know who won. I don't think anyone did, but it ended up being Dabbs. It was a great race.
You making the transition out of the Legends cars, and I know that you've talked to me a little bit about that transition that you made, and of course your first race was at Watermelon Capital. Talk about what that was like to go from the Bandolero to the Legends cars.
Well, it's for sure a big change, you know. A couple of the main things are acceleration, shifting, things like that. We've been working on shifting for a while, so I was pretty good at that, but the acceleration was hard. I had to, you know, figure out in a bando, you're pretty much getting out of the gas and you're all the way back in it, not going to spin the tires, get loose or anything. In a Legend car, you really got to roll it in, you know. If you get all the way on the gas, that thing will just come all around on you. So that was another thing. Another one was the line. It's a lot different in a Legend. You don't run, say, the middle or anything at a track like that. You have to go in early, you get on the brakes a little bit, which is a lot different. The bando, no matter where you go, you pretty much don't hit the brakes, and that was the big difference. But in the race, we had actually come through with it a little pretty well, and we had a good time. A lot of learning right there, and we came out really well. So it was a good learning experience, and it really helped us come into Atlanta.
And then, of course, you went to Atlanta and really drove a good race there last week. And I know I learned a lot again, and you were kind of joking with me about being told that, you know, the Legends and the Bandolero line are quite similar. You didn't quite see it that way.
Yeah, I was actually, my dad told me he had heard, I don't remember who it was, but I told him the line's about pretty similar, and I went out there and did it, and man, I went in there, I got on the brakes, and that thing wanted to come around. It doesn't work that way. But after a good couple laps in the Legend, practicing, got behind some people, which really helped me, you know. Got the line down pretty well, and we were just slowly learning. I was learning how to get the brakes good there, since you're all the way down on them. The line, way different, you know, like we were talking about, and it's really nice, you know, to be able to get out there behind some of the faster guys and learn off of them, things like that. Pretty much the whole night, the only thing that we changed the whole time was the brake bias, just to get me a little more front-end brake bias to help it not come around on the brakes a little bit, which really helped.
Yeah, I'm sure it did. And, you know, you really did a great job at both of those races. Are you surprised at how quickly you've adapted to the Legends car?
I honestly am, you know. I mean, it's the fastest I've ever adapted to a car. In go-karts, I mean, that was my first one, so that one took the longest. But a Bando took me a while. I mean, but a Legend, I'd say, it's really a lot easier than I thought it would be. And that really surprised me because, you know, I'd heard it's so hard to learn to shift, how to get on the brakes and all that kind of stuff, which it's not easy, but it's a little easier I thought it would be. But, you know, it was a great experience so far. I love the Legend car. It's so fun, you know, it's so much faster. And it uses you up a little more, though. I gotta admit, after those first couple races, man, I was tired, but it was fun.
My question for you, Zach, is you've jumped in the Legends car and really taken off here the first couple races. With the early success that you've had going forward for 2014, what are your expectations for the full season in the Legends car?
Well, my goal right now, my main goal is for Thursday under the Summer Series at Atlanta. My goal is to get Rookie of the Year, and I feel like that's a pretty fair goal, pretty good one. We're going to the plan is to go to the Winter Nationals at Auburndale this year, which we hear would really help down at Atlanta. That's in February for a week, 5 races, a day of practice, and that was a good experience in the Bandos last year. That picked us up at Atlanta a good bit too, so I'm really excited for that.
And certainly a lot of great opportunities coming up for you, Zach. I know you can't do it alone, and certainly a lot of people have been behind you to help you get to where you're at right now. Who makes it happen for Zach Leonardi?
Well, the list goes on, but I got a couple ones right here. My parents, man, they're the ones that started it out for me. When I said I got to go, when I wanted to start racing, I was about 4 years old, man. I don't know what they were thinking actually getting it for me, but I'm happy they did, you know. I gotta thank them more than pretty much anyone here. It was, without them, we wouldn't even be racing, you know. They've been working AdvoCare for the past couple of years, which has actually helped me. I always drink a Spark before my races, my heat races, all that kind of stuff. I always do that before I go to school and all that. Gets me going. I gotta thank my grandparents, some of my biggest supporters, you know. They've been behind me the whole time. Team Full Throttle, Tom right there, you know. He's been helping me for a little while now. Jeff and Debbie Brown, they've been good supporters. They used to, they painted my car in Bandolero car. They've been great supporters. Castrol, you know, they get us some motor oil. They're a good business right there. They're helping us out, and gotta say thanks to them. Napa of Kennesaw, they're giving us some parts, you know. They get us some deals on those, and that always helps, you know. Parts are some of the biggest things in racing. No Beginning Signs and Graphics, we're actually wrap on our car soon right now, and which is really cool because I actually was able to design it in iRacing, and we're actually getting that wrap on there, which is really exciting for me. RacerBoost.com, they're getting us a website getting made right now, and that's going to be really exciting, you know. I mean, we haven't updated our website in quite a while, so it'll be good to have a new one working. Finish Master, they've supplied the paint for my Bandolero cars the whole time. It's been nice. Pinky Toes Nail Salon, they're working on, you know, raising money for breast cancer awareness and all these things. It's been great. They're great supporters as well. And Racing Radios, we're doing great there. They're getting us deals on ears, on the earpieces, how we're able to, you know, the earpieces that are molded for your ears, they help so much on receivers. And last but not least, V's Green Garden, they got us a deal on lawn care. Every time I get a win in a heat race or a feature race, we get $100 off of our lawn care, so it's real nice. So I just got to thank all those people as a whole, and hope they can stay with us long term.
You rattle the names off like a pro. Tom, the kid's going to go places as we head to commercial. That's Zach Leonardi, driver of the number 24 Legends car for Leonardi Motorsports, heading forward into 2014. Zach, thank you for taking some time to talk with us here on The Madness this evening, and we wish you the best of luck here going forward.
Thank you, guys. Talk to you some point else, hopefully.
We're going to take a break here on Motorsports Madness. When we come back, we break down the North-South shootout. We've got Kyle Souza in the house to talk modifieds at Caraway. That's coming up right after this on Speed77 Radio and Race Chaser Online. We are your home for motorsports.
Coming to Tampa Bay, I said we want to win a Super Bowl, and I believe we will.
From IamSecond.com.
We came close, but never really did win that championship.
Former NFL head coach Tony Dungy.
At the end of my 6th year, I was fired, and it was one of the biggest disappointments of my life. Next year, I'm in Indianapolis, get to the playoffs, but get knocked out again. And for the next couple of years, it's the same thing. Everyone is saying Colts are never going to win one. And I did wonder, why didn't it pan out the way I thought it would? But I determined that I had to have Christ first, and that everything else came below that, including my own desires. The next year, that ended up being our year to go to the Super Bowl and win it, and it was a wonderful feeling. Every decision I make, I'm going to make it through the lens of Jesus Christ, and He'd guide us to that ultimate victory.
Watch Tony's story at IamSecond.com.
Did you know that most teens who drink alcohol get it from people they know? Usually their friends or family members. But regardless of where they get it, alcohol puts teens at risk for injury, to themselves and to others. You can help make it a safe summer for the teens you know. Don't serve them alcohol. It's unsafe, it's illegal, and it's irresponsible. Find out more at don'tserveteens.gov. That's don'tserveteens.gov. A message from the Federal Trade Commission and this station.
I knew some people would question it. I knew some people wouldn't approve. It's not just a number. It's a symbol for a great man who did great things. I don't want to erase that. I want to add to it. And I want to make my own name. I knew it wouldn't be easy, and that's why I wanted it.
Austin Dillon with a checkered flag.
I'm Jacob Seelman.
And I'm Tom Baker.
You're listening to Speed77 Radio,
powered by Race Chaser Online.
We are your home for motorsports. Welcome back to Motorsports Madness here on Speed77 Radio and Race Chaser Online. Now moving into the final half hour of our 90-minute broadcast this evening, and we're going to talk the North-South shootout from Caraway Speedway over the weekend, as well as some Pass South late model action. And to talk all things Pass and modified related, we're bringing our expert out of Massachusetts back onto the show with us, courtesy of Race Chaser Online, Kyle Souza. Kyle, glad to have you back with us, and boy, we do have a good bit to talk about here this evening.
Jacob and Tom, glad to be back here on a Tuesday night. The North-South shootout actually this year in the past portion of the main event to something I've never seen before. Looking back at the race, I actually got to watch part of the race on YouTube this morning. I wasn't able to get down to Caraway this week, and I've read a lot about it, so I'm going to do my best to recap it for you. First with the Pass Tour. There were 23 cars on hand that took the green flag. One of them did not start, so 22 took the green flag on Saturday afternoon for the 150-lap main event. That did not mean that all of them finished or even close to finished. 12 of them actually finished the race, and it all came down to what looked like it was going to be a fantastic finish to the North-South Shootout 150. Daniel Hemrick and Kyle Grissom were at the front with 4 laps remaining in a late race. Caution came out. They doubled up, went back to the green flag, and when they did, both of them spun their tires. So when they entered turn 1, Hemrick went up the racetrack, made contact with Grissom. They went around out the front of the pack. They collected Kyle D'Souza, Jody Mesmer, Randy Gentry, Carl Weber, and a couple others. Ben Rowe was running 7th when they entered turn 1, was at the front of the pack. And the former Pass South Super Late Model champion and North champion found car number 4 at the front of the 150-lap main. He was able to coast around over the final couple, and Ben Rowe is your past winner at the Caraway Speedway for the North-South Shootout weekend. He defeated Jay Fogelman, Ted Mickelson, Randy Gentry, and Spencer Davis in a weight race stash. Only 6 cars finished on the lead lap on Saturday afternoon in a race that took a long time to complete, well over an hour. Interesting at that, those cars usually quick-paced, and not that many cautions, but everybody going for the little bit of an inch on the racetrack. It made for an interesting battle for the past tour. Their final event, the 8th annual Mason-Dixon Meltdown 200, coming up at the Southern National Motorsports Park on Saturday, November 23rd. For the past portion of the event, maybe a little slow, but the modified portion of the event went to a wily veteran, in the North-South Shootout. The 11th annual, this driver had won 4 coming into it. Well, Saturday he made it 5. It was a record 5th win for Matt Hirschman. He brought the title back towards the north, leading the first 52 after time trialing on pole for the main event. Tom, we talked last week, I don't know if you remember, about George Brunholzer III. Well, Tom, he was pretty strong. He was out front for part of the event. They all pitted around lap 55 under a caution flag, and Matt and Hirschman was able to slide around the outside of the racetrack late, battling Brunholzer, and came all the way back to the front after pitting to take his 5th North-South Shootout victory. It was a record for him. Tony Black had a strong run, but he went around late, and Matt Hirschman made the move from the top to the bottom, down to the inside of George Brunholzer III, and man, was he strong, Tom.
Well, Georgie is, I told you, he really loves Caraway, and you don't get to be a 3-time champion in succession by happenstance, so I knew he was going to be tough in that one.
Brunholzer was wicked strong back towards the finish of that one, but Hirschman with that crossover move on lap number 74, he never looked back. Matt Hirschman, now a 5-time winner of the North-South Shootout. We spoke about it last week, that he was going to be the car to beat going into the event, and he made that clear. Pulling away at the end, but there was a late race caution that played into things. Brunholzer was able to take one more shot, couldn't do it, and he's had to settle for seconds. Andy Seiss, former winner this season on the NASCAR Southern Modified Tour, came home. Strong run for Brian Lofton, finishing 4th, and the Northern competitor on the Valenti Modified Racing Series, Tommy Barrett, came home 5th. It was Charlie Pastriak 6th, Jason Myers, relative of Burt Myers, who had run this race back in 2008 and 2009. He finished 7th. Chuck Hosfeld finished 8th. Ronnie Silk, Tommy Neal, the top 10 in the North-South Shootout 125. 10 of them on the lead lap. 26 started. Al Winstead was the final finisher, finishing 26th, only completing 2 of the 150 lap. Quick mention of the North-South Shootout, Josh Nichols won the modified light 50-lap main, and Dennis Lampert took the 25-lap race for the Legend cars at the North-South Shootout this past weekend.
So not going to go there on the Legends race, Tom. I could think of several comments, but you know, Dennis Lambert's like Jimmy Johnson when it comes to the Legends car ranks. If he sits in a race car, you expect him to go to victory lane. Is anybody surprised by this?
No.
Exactly, and that's all that needs to be said on that. Kyle Souza, we're about to round out the season here and get set for 2014, the North-South Shootout. Pretty much the last hurrah for the modifieds this season as we get ready to wrap up 2013, head towards 2014. Anything you're keeping your eyes on?
Yeah, 2014 is already looking interesting, especially up here in the north. Been a lot of rumors about the NASCAR Whelen Modified northern portion of the tour. That some of the cars are not going to be running the full season. It was announced this past week that Doug Colby, Wayne Darling, and the 52 Seekonk Grand Prix team, the defending champion before Ryan Preece took the title this past season, will only be running a part-time schedule in 2014. He will not be going to Daytona Beach as part of the UNOH Battle of the Beach that is scheduled. He will not be going to Bristol as scheduled. That's going to be interesting to see. That's definitely going to shake up the championship race now. Ryan Preece is scheduled to return to go after back-to-back titles in the NASCAR Whelen Modified Tour. Brian Chu is now retired. Woody Pitkat has a part-time ride in the tour. It's interesting also to note, Valenti Modified Racing Series is losing some competitors. We spoke about Tommy Barrett. Richard Savory will both not be competing next season on the Valenti Modified Racing Series. That series will go into its 11th season in 2014. They've had strong, constantly up in the car counts. This year, their best. They had upwards of 30 cars at each event, so that was great to see. But the NASCAR Wheel and Modified Tour, very, 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 very in question as we head into 2014. Not even sure how many cars are going to show up to a weekly event. They've been constantly getting 25 or 26, but that number could dwindle down to 10, 12. I've heard even 15 for NASCAR Wheel and Modified Tour event. That would not be good for the North.
Ow. Ow. That makes me cringe just thinking about, Tom, after all the success that the Wheel and Modified Tour has had over the years. That's a crying shame is what that is.
It is a shame, and I think it speaks more to the cost of racing those cars and how expensive it's gotten. There's just not, it's kind of like the super modifieds at Oswego now. There just aren't a ton of teams that can afford to go plunk down six figures on a racing operation, and I think the Tour is suffering from a little bit of overvaluing at this point, and it's a shame because it's some of the best racing going, but it's just very, very costly.
You know, Tom, the northern portion of the Tour has actually put up a lot of money to head down to Bristol over the past couple of seasons. That's hurt the financial state. I spoke with Wayne Dowling, owner of the 52 at Seekonk Speedway as part of the DAV Fall Classic, and Wayne told me that they won a $10,000 check in an open show at Seekonk in July. Well, they spent that money, exactly all of it, going down to Bristol the next month. So the $10,000 check they won, they dished right out, got the team in, got the food, got everything they needed, travel all the way to Bristol, and they didn't even finish the event. So it's not good to spend all that money. They put a lot of money into these race cars. A couple of events this season had a little bit of carnage, but it's just disappointing to see the Northern Tour fading away.
Well, that's what I mean by overvaluing, or overreaching is another way to put it. I think it's just gotten to a point now where somebody's got to find a way to scale it back just a little bit, make it less costly for the competitors. I don't think it's lack of people wanting to race the Tour. I think it's just lack of people being financially able to. It's a very expensive series, and you can't possibly pay enough of a purse to keep up with the cost on those cars like that.
And absolutely, I think that's going to affect the local track like the Stafford Springs, Connecticut Speedway and the Thompson Speedway, and possibly a rumor coming out over the last couple of weeks that the Seekonk Speedway could be putting together an SK Modified show once a month. That is where the value is going to come at this point. The SK Modifieds are a little bit cheaper. They're a lot more competitive, it seems, at the Thompson and Stafford Speedway. From what I've seen, the Tour has the same 5 or 6 people in the front. I've seen SK races come with people that have never even get in one of an SK driver's cars, go out there and dominate the race. The SKs are where it's going to be. The value is lower, but the cars are just as fast, and they have just as packed racing, sometimes even better than the Tour or even the Valenti series.
That's exactly right. I was going to go there, but you did it first, and good job. That's the SKs really, and the SK Lights even. Those divisions are really getting a lot of attention now, as well they should be. The modifieds and the super modifieds are going through the exact same thing right now. Cars have gotten a lot more expensive, but the purses haven't risen, and you just cannot possibly raise the purses high enough to keep up with the costs. And going to a place like Bristol, that's a lot of money for a northern guy. The southern guys, not so much, but the northern guys that have to travel on top of the expensive running a fast track like Bristol, it's just, like you said, $10,000 out the door. Not many people can afford that on a long shot to try and win the race.
Yeah, and you know what? The SK Light division, as you mentioned, has also been growing. The Stafford Speedway put that together a couple of years ago up here in the north and really started it. But that has really, really, really come strong in the last couple of seasons, pushing to Thompson and Stafford. The SK Lights is going to have upwards of 15, 20 cars at each track they go to. And it's going to be interesting, Tom, to see what happens as the 2014 season comes around. I hope the Tour stays intact. But if not, there's some other modified racing up here in the north that will be exciting.
That it will be, and we'll certainly look forward to see how things shape up in 2014, Kyle Souza, and we know you'll be following it as soon as any news comes to us. We appreciate you taking some time to keep us updated on what's going on, and we look forward to hearing from you again shortly here on The Madness.
Join us here Thursday night at Stock Car Steel. We're going to talk about the Valenti Modified Racing Series, maybe a little bit about the Northern Tour. See if these modifieds can stay intact for 2014. Thanks, guys. Have a good night.
We're going to take a break, our final caution flag of the night, and when we come back, we're going to roll the conclusion on the madness with talk from the World Finals. We'll break it all down right after this. You're listening to Speed 77 Radio and Race Chaser Online. We are your home for motorsports.
My very first movie, it was called British Terabithia, and that was a film that a lot of kids loved.
From IamSecond.com.
It felt very cool in my heart to know that I did something nice.
Actress Bailey Madison.
I don't want it to be about me, I want it to be about God. Even though you have an earth father, he is your father, that you can say to him, God, I'm not feeling too well today. Or if it's just, little things like, I feel homesick, or I need you, Lord, I need to feel happiness in my heart. The most important thing is you have to have hope, you have to have faith. God is with you, and God is with you every step of the way. If you give yourself to God and you say, I'm ready to commit myself to you, you will know that God is watching you. He looks down and he goes, I'm very, very happy with what you just did. My name is Bailey Madison, and I am second.
I'm Jacob Seelman.
And I'm Tom Baker.
You're listening to Speed 77 Radio,
powered by Race Chaser Online.
We are your home for motorsports. Welcome back to Motorsports Madness here on Speed 77 Radio and RaceChaserOnline.com. Let's roll this to conclusion, shall we? Gentlemen, James Pike and Tom Baker joining me at the round table, and we wrap our coverage up tonight with coverage from the World Finals at Charlotte 2013, concluding the season schedules for the World of Outlaws STP Sprint Car Series, Late Model Series, and the Super Dirt Car Series. Tom, you and I were on the grounds to cover all the action from over the weekend, and boy, I had a great time, and we certainly saw a lot of fantastic racing.
We spent a week at Charlotte over the weekend, didn't we?
It felt like it, didn't it?
Sure did. Yeah, there was some fantastic racing. I mean, that event, that World Finals event, you got three of the most exciting dirt car divisions on the planet, all in the same place at the same time, running for their championships. It just doesn't get any better than that. I think said something like 174 cars, something close to that, in the pit area between the three divisions, and I think they estimated 18 to 20,000 people somewhere in there altogether. So it surely was a fantastic weekend, although it was extremely cold at night. The sun was out both days, so no issues with Mother Nature playing foul, and just some great racing all the way around. It was definitely a ton of fun, and it was great to be a part of the coverage and to be able to produce so much for Race Chaser Online with you, for sure.
And certainly we had a lot of fun. Friday night was interesting. We saw Donnie Schatz keep the championship hopes alive with a victory in the STP Sprint Cars portion. Brett Hearn in the Super Dirt Car Modified division take a step to basically cementing his 8th championship. And then in the late models, it was Darrell Lanigan, the defending champion, trying to keep his hopes alive. But Josh Richards finishes 3rd and grabs the championship on night 1. Friday night was all about the best of the best.
Yeah, it really was. Brett Hearn just walked the modified field, really. I mean, there were some folks that was pretty much in control on Friday night for the most part, and the WWE moment of the night was when the doctor, Danny Johnson, decided to punt Tim McCready, and then, of course, Tim fired up the car, turned it around, and drove straight into the back of the good doctor, and then proceeded to cut him off at the pass going into turn 3, and they had a little fun there, and then the track tossed McCready, and of course Johnson had damage, so they both finished poorly that first night, but that gave us sort of the WWE moment of the night. You're in a short track win kind of thing, and that was the highlight reel for Friday night in the modified division for sure.
Yeah, it was, and that was one that went down on the highlight reels for the whole weekend. I came back on Saturday, and we were wandering the the dirt car pits, and I still heard people around the McCready pit talking about the incident from Friday night. So certainly made the news wire for the weekend. Saturday night, though, was the story of the champions, and boy, what a battle we had in the STP sprint cars. Darren Pittman versus Donnie Schatz. Schatz did everything he could, Tom. He fought tooth and nail, but just like the Texans at the Battle of the Alamo, Schatz couldn't do it. Darren Pittman holds on by 14 points, finishes 12th, does exactly what he needs to do to lock up his first ever World of Outlaws Sprint Car title, first championship for Casey Kane Racing. Of course, Brett Hearn in a great battle with Stuart Friesen. Friesen gets the win, Hearn gets the title, and then Josh Richards celebrating a championship with a win. Unbelievable how these seasons have turned out, but it always seems like every year the cream rises to the top. And what's amazing about this, Darren Pittman wins the Sprint Car Championship, and Donnie Schatz has 23 wins.
Yeah, it really is unbelievable. But see, that's the difference between a series. Most of all of racing awards points strictly based on results, on where you finish. When you get into sprint car racing, and there are some other forms of racing, I think, that do it, but sprint cars are where it's most known, you get into passing points, and all of a sudden it becomes a whole different ball game. So you've got a guy that wins 23 times, loses the championship. Well, a lot of it's between qualifying and passing points, and that was the difference. And that's, I think, every single racing series not only ought to adopt passing points as part of their points system, but they ought to pay a purse based on passing points as well. That would completely put the racing back in the racing and stop this nonsense of riding around for 3/4 of the race to collect points. And even the guys at the back of the field who are passing each other all the time would have a chance to make some more money and accumulate some more points. I just think it's a great system, and I think it proved itself in that particular outcome there for Pittman.
It really did. And you know, Donnie Schatz said it in his post-race interview that we got for RaceChaserOnline.com. We didn't get out-raced. We got out-qualified.
Yeah, that was definitely the case, for sure. But, you know, that's all a part of it. And, you know, that's a part of the overall race program is qualifying. So people need to learn to be better at it. And certainly that was a big advantage there. Gotta make a mention, just kind of off the beaten path as far as the racing goes, but had a chance to meet a driver that I've been looking forward to meeting at some point for a little while now, just to kind of find out what he's about and get to talk to him a little bit. And that was Tyler Reddick. You and I got to talk to him over the weekend, and just really humble, really respectful, very down-to-earth young racer. And boy, is that kid talented or what?
He is very talented, and he was running very, very strong in that Saturday night feature, up inside the top 5 before a mechanical failure ended his night. And you're right, Tom, extremely respectful. We saw him win the K&N race at Rockingham 2 years ago now, and he's going to go places, whether it's on the pavement or on the dirt. I know he said he hadn't done a whole lot of pavement racing lately, but in that dirt late model, he has been on it all year. I got a chance to sit down for an interview with Tyler, and that interview will be on one of our featured stories for Race Chaser Online coming up here in the next couple of days.
That should be a blast. And the other big story that broke over the weekend there was the big announcement that a new team is being formed for the World of Outlaws with Kyle Larson and Justin Marks. And really, really, really surprised that those guys are teaming up. And I'll let you kind of finish that story.
It's going to be very surprising, and Shane Stewart going to be the driver for that Larson Marks Racing team in 2014. Shane Stewart has been a driver who's had some decent opportunities in the World of Outlaws in the past, but he is a very talented sprint car driver. He's shown promise on the World of Outlaws schedule, driving for teams that may not have always had top flight funding. Obviously now we know Kyle Larson and Justin Marks, two of the greatest dirt racers around, are going to put top-notch equipment underneath him, and I fully expect Shane Stewart to challenge for wins and maybe even a top 5 in the point standings next year, so long as that team does ultimately end up running full-time.
Yeah, it should be exciting, and that's what's cool about sprint car racing is you see guys like Larson and Justin Marks involved with the team, and then they put somebody in the car, and you get all of these great driver-owner pairings and just so much talent there, and such great racing minds. That should just fun to watch. The Outlaws just had a great season again, and man, it was a great weekend. Had a great time. Just a conglomerate of racing folk from all over the country. Saw a lot of people there that were down from the north, and some folks from the Midwest that I knew, and some folks from Florida that I knew as well over the weekend. So people from all over I know that they were represented in the crowd by somebody from all 50 states, plus all the provinces of Canada, and I don't know how many foreign countries. It's just an amazing event. It really is.
8 foreign countries, but who's counting, right? We've got about 3 or 4 minutes here, and Tom, I know for those that follow the World of Outlaws STP Sprint Car Series, a new champion, just the 9th in 36 years, is always one to listen to. And before we head off the air tonight, after the racing action was over on Saturday, we caught up with the new champion of the Outlaws, Darren Pittman, to talk about his 2013 season and his run to the title. Take a listen. Jacob Seelman for Speed77 Radio and Race Chaser Online. Post-race now with officially the 2013 World of Outlaws champion, Darren Pittman. Darren, I saw you blinking back tears a minute ago. It's still sinking in, I know. What does it mean to you to have wrapped up this championship here on the final night of the season?
Just a dream come true. Everybody who's ever set foot behind one of these cars, I think, dreams of this moment. So, you know what? 9 people have ever done this. There's a lot of sprint car drivers and people that I would have never even put my name in the same breath that have won these championships, and to put my name on a short list of 9 people, you can only dream about it and honestly, realistically think that it'll probably never come true, but it just shows what a great team that I'm involved with and have working behind me, because I couldn't get a job for the last 4 years out here on the road, and we come out for the first year and won a championship. So that just tells you how good these people are, and how good Cale, Colton, Michael Carver, they do an awesome job, and I'm as proud for them as I am for me. I know that they've worked as hard as I have to get here, and it's a lot of years' work from everybody's standpoint to try to get to this point.
What does it mean to you to come over to this Casey Kane Racing team? Joey Saldana vacated the seat. You took it over here in 2013 to come out and in your first year with this team win the championship.
Dream come true. Just, couldn't be happier that I got the chance that Casey called and picked me. He could have picked probably 10 other drivers that were capable of coming in and being successful here, and I was just the lucky one that got the call. I was grateful for it that day. I've been grateful for it every day since, and I want to be grateful for a really, really long time. So I'd love to stay here for as long as he owns sprint cars, I can tell you that.
How tough was it for you during this feature event, Darren? You ran middle of the pack most of the race, ultimately finished 12th, but how tough was it for you knowing that Donnie Schatz was up towards the front of the field?
Middle of the pack was, I think, a lie. I was in the back of the pack for a little while, so we had to start racing and get going because what I was doing wasn't working. So it wasn't easy. I can tell you that's not a fun way to try to race and trying to keep track of what's going on. And the curb was kind of tricky, so I knew I needed to get up there, but I mean, you don't want to wreck yourself, and I didn't feel that great up there, and the car was better than I drove it. I was way too cautious, and finally just once I lost enough spots and have a choice, I had to sit up in the seat and get the job done and trust the car, and that's what I had to do.
The season's over. I know you can't do it alone. Time to give your shout-outs. Who makes it happen for Darren Pittman?
Casey Kane, Great Clips, Cale Kane, Colton Nouse, and Michael Carver. You know what? It's all people. Sponsors, we got to have the money, but it doesn't matter how much money you have or what kind of equipment you got if you don't have the people. It means nothing. So this is for those guys, and forever grateful for them.
Tell you what, Darren, go rouse your crew. Darren Pittman, the 2013 World of Outlaws Sprint Car Series champion. Woo! You hear the emotion in Darren Pittman's voice as he talks about it. He said it again. 9 people have ever done it, Tom. Just goes to show you how tough the World of Outlaws Sprint Car Series is to win.
Yeah, it really is. And of course, Darren really, it was almost a deer in the headlights sort of a thing. It was as if I'm sure he believed that he was capable of doing it, that the team could do it, and that he certainly had a good chance at it. But nonetheless, when it finally hits you that you've done it, just like, wow, did I just do that? And that's really what I get out of that. And it certainly was great to see, and good for Casey Kane to be able to have that for his organization. Certainly a proud moment.
Very. And James Pike, as we sign off here tonight, certainly another great show. Glad to have you on board with us. Just a lot of things going on over the weekend, each as impressive as the next, and looking forward to doing it again next week.
I'll say I, for one, am very, very, very excited for next week because I get to bring a gigantic dose of previews from Phillip Island, where the V8 Supercars are going to be next weekend. I know Joel Sebastianelli will be back to talk the Brazilian Grand Prix as well. I figure there will be talk from Homestead, Miami. Just the madness keeps on rolling, as you like to say.
That it does. And now for Tom Baker, James Pike, Joel Sebastianelli, Kyle Souza, those who weren't with us tonight, DJ Everett, Stephen Ovens. Special thanks to Zach Leonardi for joining us live on the show tonight. I'm Jacob Seelman, reminding all you race fans out there to keep it off the wall until we meet again, and we'll see you at the track. Good night, everybody.